Technology is advancing at an alarming rate. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a hot topic discussed at this year's World Economic Forum. Global leaders are debating the benefits and concerns that AI will have on jobs and the economy. Africa is left asking itself whether it's playing catch-up, or can Africa lead the pack? CNBC Africa's Kenneth Igbomo was joined by a panel of experts who shared their knowledge on blockchain, tokenization, and what is the best way forward.
And when I left medicine, I said, how can I solve this problem of people coming from poor rural areas, long distances, and having to repeat unnecessary investigations and they're not getting the care that they should be able to get. And that's when we decided to invest in health information system technologies and customized it for the African continent to the extent that, we won many awards for doing that. And we covered about 400 hospitals, not just in Africa, but in other parts of the world as well. And that's an example of where you use technology for good. And so AI, blockchain, tokenization, the biggest opportunities in Africa is in the area of healthcare, in terms of predictive analysis, in terms of diseases, prevention, treatment, efficiencies and optimization of the healthcare system. It is in the area of agriculture, and I think a lot of people speak about that. We saw it happen, in other technologies. And in tokenization, we can get Africans to be more part of ownership of African assets. So I'm a great believer in Africa. I'm a great believer that, the next... in fact, I've been a strong proponent of that. One of the things which I did is I chaired the BRICS Business Council for the 5 countries. I was chairman of South Africa and then of the 5 countries. And in that, and under my chairmanship, I invited about 40 African countries to come and join BRICS as part of the expansion in technology. It was a very special session that we held in 2018. So I really believe that we're at the cusp of something great. We need a couple of things. We need to make sure that we put enough capital into these 3 areas. We need to make sure that the application is going to go well, and we need the young people, in particular young people, to actually take up and innovate and be entrepreneurial. And I think if we can do that, the future for our continent is just truly amazing.
Thank you so much. Very, very apt comments made there. No doubt that technology is an enabler and also a leveler. Let me ask my next question to Michelle. Listen to what has been said then. In terms of how we look at asset tokenizations and blockchain and artificial intelligence, how then can African governments leverage on these digital assets?
Thank you so much, Ken. Hello, everybody, especially those at the back. I would love you guys to join us. Thank you so much for having us. Thanks to Brother Mamadou and Kojo, of course, for hosting us again. Fantastic question, fantastic contribution here. I really think that, it's Africa's time, number one, 100%. Africa's time for sure. But in answering your question, because I spent a lot of my time working with the heads of states in Africa, right? Various heads of states across the continent. And one of the things that we have been very, very clear about is actually saying to the heads of state, if we do not have the right environment, right, for any of these technologies, we're not really going to benefit from it. Africa is not going to leapfrog. If we do not have the right environments, if we do not have the right digital infrastructure, if we do not invest in supporting our human capital. So I want to emphasize on the human capital. I know we spend a lot of time talking about the technologies. The technologies are enablers. The technologies will help to do certain things. Blockchain, AI, we can leverage the technologies to do good, absolutely. But again, if we don't have the right environments, and this is where government comes in, and it's very important, I think, for governments to really understand that we are, especially African governments, that it's either now or never really, for us to truly leverage what we have in front of us. artificial intelligence has the power to actually transform many, many sectors for African economies and to allow us to have that value retention, right? We want Africa to be able to leverage on what we call value retention. And technology can help with that value retention, right? We talk about blockchain in very, sort of vague words. Blockchain can only support to a certain point. I think for me, the convergence of different technologies is going to actually power Africa. So this is the mix of, artificial intelligence or blockchain, data, cybersecurity. If we don't have cybersecurity embedded in our systems, we're going to have issues. So back to your question, Ken, we have been working a lot in terms of coming up with what we call the Digital Trade Protocol with the African Continental Free Trade Area, working with His Excellency Wamkele Mene. That protocol is actually significant in terms of actually creating the environments that we need, I think, as governments to be able to actually leverage what the technologies can actually do for us. So for me, I think the power really lies in a combination of things. Yes, enabling the technologies, leveraging technologies, investing in supporting our human capital, that is skills development, especially digital skills development. Understanding the African context is significant. Understanding African context, and this is what I actually highlighted in the MIT paper I was talking to you about, Ken. It is important that we have the African context. Now, Africa is made up of small, medium enterprises. 80% of our businesses are SMEs. If you cannot cater for the SMEs, or the SMEs don't have the skill set to leverage AI or blockchain or data, then we're missing the trick. So for me, it's important to invest in the human capital, in the young kids. Nigeria, for example, 200 million people Nigeria is going to have, right? I met the Nigerian tech minister. We had a discussion about the importance of skilling up our young people in terms of the areas of artificial intelligence. I am glad, thrilled, that he has actually introduced an initiative to train over 3 million Nigerians in AI. That's the sort of action we need. So we need to have less of the talks and the conversations, and we need to actually do something about it. So that is skill up our young people, invest in the right areas, make sure that our regulations and our policies are also conducive for the African market and actually support the African market. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that contribution. No doubt human capital is very critical here. And it leads me to my next question to Professor Marivate. Yes, we need experts, we need talent, we need skills, we need an avenue to groom these experts. But then are we having enough research and development in these areas to get the outcomes that we desire?
Yeah, thanks for having me here, and then thanks for Mamadou and Kojo also, and everybody who's on this panel. Yeah, so I wear many hats, and I'll explain why in just a little bit. But mostly, I'm at the University of Pretoria as a chair of data science there, and a associate professor. And I'm at Lelapa AI as one of the co-founders. And Lelapa AI is an AI research startup based in Johannesburg. So I think, again, in telling stories and given the past two speakers, we can go back about 10 to 15 years ago. There's a number of lots of talented Africans who had gone on, studied computer science engineering, but mostly working in computing or mathematics of AI. A number of us came back to the continent over a period, and one of the things that you started noticing was we had been in other spaces where you saw the opportunity of AI coming. I could even say that for the US, for Canada, for a number of European countries and China, there's already, 15 years ago, the choices were made to make investments into especially the R&D space, in those spaces, to carve out the cake. So there's this economic opportunity of AI, and there's also a geopolitical play here of whoever controls these technologies is actually going to control the future of economies. And for myself, when you came back to the continent, those discussions were not happening. Those actualities were not happening. And they weren't happening in the public sector, they weren't happening in the private sector, they were not happening in academia. Yes, there were people working on AI, but it's more like, okay, I'm working on AI, great. But you need to build all this whole ecosystem that allows you to exploit that when new, you can create new innovations, and when new innovations also come in, they can quickly then be tested out and then end up in the hands of the regular people. So one of the things we did with a couple of friends is that we started a Deep Learning Indaba. So Deep Learning Indaba now is the premier AI research conference on the continent. Last year we had 800 people in Ghana. It started in 2017 with 300 people. And even the 800 people that we had last year, it was from 3,000 applications. People trying to come to a research conference on the continent. When we started in 2017 and we were trying to get funding for the conference, people were laughing us out of their offices, saying, you're saying you want to have a research conference. We do sales. We get a technology from Europe, we get a technology from the US, we repackage it for the African continent. We don't do any of the development here. So investing in an R&D conference doesn't make any sense for us because we just want to have our CEO sit and sell whatever product it is, right? But then now, you fast forward to 2023, 2024, you can see by building this network of people who are now, who've been working on R&D, supporting them and getting them to feel that they're not the only ones. They are actually connected across borders, right? It builds up that army that we need for the continent so that when whatever LLM comes through, it is not something that is taken as being foreign. It's things that we do, it's things that we build, and we develop even ourselves, and that's the thing that you need. The other one was in 2019, we started Masakani. So Masakani Research Foundation is built on, we can work together. So Masakani in Suzulu means build or build each other. And we can build an African natural language processing community that can build tooling in AI for all of our African languages. There's 2,000 plus languages on the continent. And this was 2019 at the Indaba then, we started this, this research, distributed research organization to just say, let's work on these things. We might not have the money, but we have the people. There's so many young people on the continent. We're seeing these technologies and saying, how do I work and do research in this area and also make an impact? Masakani has gone on to be multi-award winning. It has changed the way that even globally, a lot of natural language processing is done, and it was built on the continent. It's not built somewhere else. And there's actually people who are copying the model. Even the Deep Learning Indaba. In Latin America now, you have Kipu, which started as an Indaba-like event in the AI community. Masakani has created, there's America's NLP in South America that is copying these models because communities can work together and actually say, we can build AI tools and at the same time actually preserve our languages and improve digital infrastructures that enable the economy in many, many different ways. The last piece now, right, so I started as I'm a university professor, so there's teaching there. You need to create your community, get people to be empowered. You look at some of the toughest problems that you have in the society and you go for them. Now, how do these things become sustainable? And with Lelapa, now you've got the pipeline coming through of all these young people who are very talented, and you don't want to lose them to Europe or North America. North America and Europe do not have the birth rates to actually sustain an AI ecosystem. Guess where they're going to get their next talent? It is going to come from the African continent, right? From the communities we've built together as Africans. But we want people to stay on the continent and be able to build the next technologies. So we started Lelapa AI as a research company that works on core AI research and then spins off or creates tools that then become other products as time goes on. And this is important. And we need to have as many of them as possible. So for me, 2024 and going up into the next few steps is about scale. We need to resolve many, many parts of how you get AI to really get into governments, to get into private companies. We need the pull. Private companies must invest in R&D. It is not a negotiable. I think sometimes people think like, South Africa spends about 0.6% of its GDP on R&D in general, not just AI. Once you leave the South African borders, that goes very quickly to zero. Just as an as a comparison, the United States spends 3.8%. So you can see that we need to think very differently about how we build an R&D ecosystem, but we also need the private sector to be coming in and saying, how do we spend parts of our profits in actually enabling the innovators by buying whatever they're building and seeing how well it works within our space. Obviously, it's not just saying in a flippant way that just buy anything, but obviously they have to be resolving some of our kind of toughest challenges. So you cannot have, whether it's blockchain, it's AI, or you cannot have it without deep R&D investments, and they have to happen on the continent. Africans do AI research, they've been doing AI research, and they've been changing AI research for decades.
Thank you so much for that contribution. That was immense. Let me bring in Will to the conversation here. And when you look at technology and leapfrogging, Africa has made some strides, and we need to also make that known. When you look at mobile money, we're seeing what M-Pesa is doing in Kenya, and we've also talked here about the opportunities in tokenization. But then I often find that when you look at the adoption curve for most innovations that come out, we're not wanting in terms of innovators. We are seeing products come out on the continent. We're also seeing that we have early adopters come on board. But then the challenge that we have is moving that early majority into some of these ideas that are coming out, whether it be blockchain, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's asset tokenization. How then can we make that shift to get the early adopters in, which is the majority?
Thank you for the question. I really appreciate it. But there's an aspect of the question that bothers me a bit, because we are speaking about things as if they are in the abstract. Technology development, engineering, it's basically what happens here is you take ideas and energy and you convert that into action. So there are really contemporary considerations for everything that you're talking about, so we don't need to look in the past and look at things that we haven't done and look into the future about things we want. So I guess what I was coming to was we really don't need to speak about things in the abstract. We can talk about things, as they currently are, right? So there's stories to tell that aren't fiction. There's stories to tell that are quite contemporary. And there's stories to tell about people that we know. So the story I will tell is about one Mamadou, who approached me with the concept about gold tokens. And when we met, he was convinced that he was roundabout the only one with the idea to attach digital assets to physical assets. And so we had a strong debate about this. Turns out I was correct on that part, but his intention was very different from the other things that I've seen. His intention was really to sort of democratize this. And really make gold available to everyone. So when we talk about tokenization, what's often left out is the utility. What is it going to do? This is really what we need to describe and what we need to know. So basically, what this gold token will do is be attached to effectively the value of 1 milligram of gold, which is worth roughly 6.5 cents today. 1 kilo of gold is worth a little bit over 60,000. It's climbing. So just so you can understand what's being delivered. Why is this important? Because in an economic sense or in a macroeconomic sense, you have the expansion of cash. Governments are printing money, roughly at a rate of 7.5% a year, which means everyone sitting here is losing year on year around about 7%. So the dollar you have in your pocket or the euro you have in your pocket is now worth 93 cents, and then so on from there. So hard assets are the key. And then the management of those hard assets is even more important. So now we're talking about trade. So now we're talking about really sustainable, scalable value, things that are building, and via tokenization, because now you can take a real asset, a hard asset, if it's above ground or underground, and attach it to something digital. So now anybody can hold gold And vast amounts of it, smartphones, everything else, little wallets, you could hold tons of gold in the palm of your hand. So this is what the utility of this is doing. But why is this important? The reason I'm telling this story is because it's been a long march to really see some of these things come to fruition. And I think the story around U-Tribe is still yet to be told, but I start to look at concepts, I start to look at ideas. So the governments have continued to print money at around about a 7% rate, which means that you have 7% less buying power per year. And since, I've heard about the concept and how it's going to be attached to this physical asset, and there is a clear audit trail between the physical asset and the digital one, it means that the value of these 1 milligram tokens is worth roughly 6.5 cents today. So if those tokens had been available when you initially started the conversation, you would have been up like 20 points on that, less the 7% you lost, you're still positive 13%. That's really how you sort of democratize the value. That's how you sort of bring the world into hard assets. That's how you start to eliminate poverty. That's how you start to create opportunities. But what I really think we should try to do as a group is sort of emphasize some of the challenges that we all have. And not all these challenges, I would say, are specific to Africa. But I'm very happy to see that Africa is sort of leading the discussion and actually demonstrating, its efforts and actually applying those efforts. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up the issue of utility. He also brought up something very important, which is scale, and I would like to expand on that with Mr. Carol Janasek here. Looking at what we're seeing play out so far, how then can we scale a lot of these ideas and products and innovations that are coming out of the continent?
Ubuntu. So, is it working? Hello? Oh. Yes. Ubuntu, I am because we are. It is the first time in human history that we are able for the world to rise to the wisdom of these words. It is thanks to modern technologies, thanks to decentralized computing power that is uncorruptible. We have the chance to motivate people, to inspire people to make decisions, to participate in our world. We can include everybody. And for that, we need to imagine a world where we are people and we would like to understand each other's preferences and make the best decisions for everybody. Now, how do we do that? We can communicate through modern technologies. We can communicate through decentralized computing power. We can do this on a big scale, arbitrarily big scale for everybody. For that, we need smart algorithms, smart ways how to make decisions. And this is, I believe that Africa, Mother Africa, might be the first one to do the leapfrog for this usage of technology. This is the project of Ubuntu, which is connecting people, which is tokenization, the best of Africa, and enabling people to connect and make decisions together. For that decisions to be correct, we need smart ways how to assess the decisions, and it is the voting system D21 which I am bringing to the project of Ubuntu. I am very happy to be able to be part of this amazing thing. Indeed, I believe we are writing history today in these words. The world is coming to a critical point. We are facing risks of total collapse, of a collapse towards dictatorship, towards wars and hatred. And on this other side, we have these opportunities, never existing opportunities, where we can imagine a world where each of us can satisfy his or her basic needs. This is an amazing opportunity. And I believe and I hope that we here at this moment are writing history, that Africa and the project Ubuntu will be the spark that will shine through the world and will be inspiration for everybody.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that contribution. At this point, I'd like to say a big thank you to all my panelists, ladies and gentlemen, for your contributions on this very important topic for Africa at this time. Thank you so much.